Everyone talks about Omni-Man killing that train full of people. That scene lives rent-free in people's heads for years. That is the moment this show announced itself. But there is a character in Season 4 who killed more people in one afternoon than Omni-Man killed in his entire run on the show. Not in a war, not across decades. One afternoon. And the part that nobody is prepared for, Invincible found out, looked at the body count, thought about it, and decided to work with him anyway. Not reluctantly, not under pressure. He chose it. That character's name is Dinosaurus. Most of you have never heard of him. By the end of this video, you will not be able to stop thinking about him. 8 things about Dinosaurus that explain why he is the most morally complicated and dangerous character this show has ever put on screen. Let's go. David Anders is one of the most intelligent humans alive. He also transforms into a giant dinosaur when he stops caring about something, not when he gets angry, not when he's afraid, but when he becomes indifferent. The only thing standing between civilization and a prehistoric predator is David Anders staying interested in the conversation. Most people get dangerous when they care too much. Dinosaurus gets dangerous when he stops caring at all. Most people deal with a bad day by stress eating. David Anders turns into a dinosaur. We all cope differently, but the transformation isn't even the most frightening thing about him. His first appearance wasn't a rampage. It was an argument, and that argument stopped Invincible cold. This is the only villain in this show where your first reaction isn't fear or disgust. It's wait, he has a point. Dinosaurus' first appearance wasn't violence. He showed up while Mark was actively fixing the destruction from the Invincible War and told him to stop. He argued that Invincible using his powers to rebuild cities faster than human workers was destroying the economic recovery, eliminating jobs, removing the financial incentive to rebuild, stunting the growth that disaster zones actually need to heal. Not just the buildings, the economy underneath them. Mark had no answer, because the argument was correct. A superhero who can rebuild a skyscraper in an afternoon doesn't just help. He removes every construction job, every supply chain contract, every economic ripple that a recovery creates. Dinosaurus walked in and exposed a consequence of good intentions that nobody had considered. He didn't punch anyone, he just made the hero look like he hadn't thought things through, for a villain introduction that is completely unprecedented. Most villains announce themselves by blowing something up. Dinosaurus announced himself by explaining supply chain economics to a confused teenager in a cape, and then he blew up Las Vegas. Which, once you understand his logic, makes complete and horrifying sense. But here's what nobody mentions about that moment. The aftermath changed Mark Grayson permanently, and what Mark does next is the thing that will make casual fans stop the video and rewind. After the Viltrumite War, Dinosaurus escaped containment and built bombs to destroy Las Vegas. Invincible got there in time to stop one of them. The city was vaporized anyway, thousands dead, an entire American city reduced to glass, and then Cecil took Mark to the ruins and showed him what the glass was being used for. The chemical compound from the bombs was generating clean solar energy at a scale that was providing power to millions of people. Dinosaurus had calculated the blast radius, the compound dispersal, the energy yield, and built a renewable energy infrastructure into the architecture of a mass casualty event. The math was monstrous. The math also worked. This is the moment the show becomes something different. Mark stands in the ruins of Las Vegas, surrounded by evidence of thousands of deaths, and finds himself unable to construct a clean moral argument against the outcome. The city is gone, the energy is real, the people who died are gone, the people being powered didn't die. And Invincible, the character who has spent 3 seasons trying to be better than his father, has no response to that equation that feels fully honest. So Mark did the unthinkable. He broke him out. If you take nothing else from this video, Dinosaurus isn't a villain who does evil things. He is a genius who does monstrous things for reasons you cannot fully argue with. That is why he is the most dangerous character this show has ever introduced. Not because of the kill count, because of what the kill count makes you think. And Mark knowing that is about to cost everyone enormously. Mark breaks Dinosaurus out of the Pentagon. Deliberately, strategically. Full knowledge of the Las Vegas body count in his head, tells nobody. Builds a working partnership with a man who killed thousands because he concluded the ends might justify the means if someone intelligent enough was managing them. Cecil immediately declares both of them enemies of the planet. Mark accepts that cost because he made a decision that feels right in a way he cannot cleanly defend to anyone who wasn't standing in those ruins doing the same arithmetic. Their missions together work. They stop threats faster, solve problems more completely. The partnership functions, and that is exactly the problem. A partnership built on a broken moral foundation doesn't reveal its cracks until the weight becomes impossible to ignore. Mark spent months defending this, convinced himself that careful management was the difference between Dinosaurus' genius and Dinosaurus' destruction. Dinosaurus had a different definition of careful. Most people learn from a bad partnership by choosing better next time. Mark learned by watching the horizon. Dinosaurus tells Mark there is a bomb in Los Angeles. Mark races there, the Guardians arrive, the city evacuates, the bomb is found. Then Dinosaurus reveals Los Angeles was a distraction. The real bomb was in Greenland. It detonates. The ice shelf collapses. Coastal cities flood. New York, Tokyo, London. The casualty count climbs past anything Las Vegas produced. Mark had managed this partnership for months, on the premise that he could direct the genius without enabling the destruction. Dinosaurus used that trust as a tactical asset. He needed Mark occupied. Heroes focused on the wrong city. The partnership was never betrayed. It was completed. Mark's faith was the mechanism that made it work. In the aftermath, Dinosaurus asks Mark to kill him. Not because he was defeated or captured, because he looked at what he had done and finally understood his entire moral framework was never about saving humanity. It was about being the one who decided who was worth saving. The math was ego dressed up as utilitarianism. He understood it too late and too clearly to live with it. The most dangerous villain in the show's history had the most self-aware exit of any character in it. Back to 586,684, Las Vegas, the Greenland detonation, coastal cities flooding worldwide. Put that next to the rest of the show. Omni-Man's train scene, 551. Conquests, rampages, hundreds. Every other villain on that list acted from rage, vendetta, or broken ideology. Dinosaurus acted from a spreadsheet. No emotion, no grievance, just a calculation that arrived at mass death as a reasonable output and a man calm enough to execute it. The final twist that closes the loop, when the floodwaters were rising and the death toll was climbing, Dinosaurus finally understood his framework was broken. The certainty he built his entire identity around was a story he told himself to justify a need for control that had nothing to do with saving anyone. He felt genuine remorse. The villain with the highest kill count in the show's history also had the most honest reckoning with what he was. The bar for self-reflection was set at 500,000, and he cleared it in the worst direction before finally clearing it the right way. Season 4 is introducing Dinosaurus, voiced by Matthew Rhys, casting that immediately signals the show knows this character needs dramatic weight, not just spectacle. You don't cast a prestige actor to voice a monster. You cast one to voice a man who becomes a monster and needs the audience to feel the distance between those two things. The show will restructure events, the timeline will compress, the flooding mechanics may change. That's fine. The emotional architecture underneath has exactly one non-negotiable requirement. Mark has to genuinely agree with him, not be manipulated, not be fooled. He has to run the same calculation Dinosaurus ran and arrive at the partnership as a choice. If the show softens that, if Mark stays reluctant, if he keeps his hands clean throughout the arc, becomes a standard villain story, and loses everything that makes it unlike anything else in this medium. The point is that Mark chose this. That is the most uncomfortable thing Season 4 will ask its audience to sit with. Every Season 4 conversation is about Thragg, the Viltrumite war, power scaling, survival odds, valid conversations. But Dinosaurus is the character who changes what Mark believes about being a hero. The war changes what Mark can survive. Dinosaurus changes what Mark is willing to do. Those are not the same category of damage, and they don't leave the same kind of scar. Kirkman introduces Dinosaurus at the exact moment Mark is most disillusioned, after the biggest war in the galaxy has been won and the world is still broken, and asking the same questions it was asking before any of it happened. Dinosaurus is the answer to a question Mark didn't know he was carrying. What if trying harder isn't enough, and trying differently is the only option left? Season 4 is not just a war story. It's the story of what happens to a hero's morality when the enemy starts making sense. Thragg tests what Mark can take. Dinosaurus tests what Mark can justify. One of those tests leaves a scar. The other one never could. What Mark becomes on the other side of this. That's the next video. Because that version of Mark is someone this audience is not prepared for. 3 things. 1. Dinosaurus isn't evil. He's a genius, whose moral framework collapsed under the weight of his own certainty and took 500,000 people with it. 2. 586,684 isn't just a kill count. It's the number that made Invincible question whether being a good hero and being an effective one are the same thing. 3. Season 4 isn't introducing a new villain. It's introducing the character who cracks the show's moral foundation and forces Mark to decide if it can be rebuilt the same way. Was Mark wrong to work with Dinosaurus? Yes or no? Tell me why. Replying to every answer in the first hour, and if you want every Season 4 breakdown before the rest of the internet figures it out, you already know what to do.